Gogdino agus fáilte go dtí chud bretheh is mise cuiimhín ó Flanagan. Hi everybody, welcome to the Brehon Academy. I am Kevin Flanagan and today I wanted to tell you the legend of my favourite mug. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but this is my favourite mug. It's a bit of a hefty thing, and as you can see, I'll get a better picture of that for you. It's got Finn McCool. How cool is that? As a giant. And he's lifting up the earth and he's about to throw it somewhere. And there's a little story on the back. Let me see, I'll show you that on the camera. And it says, Finn McCool, the famous Irish giant of legend. And this was the thing I never understood with Finn McCool. When you read the earlier stories about Finn McCool, he is the leader of the Neagh. He is a man, a great man, but still a man. But later on in the stories, he somehow, inexplicably to me, becomes a giant. And now he's a giant. That tends to happen in the Irish myths a lot. They have a kind of dreamlike quality to them. When things aren't explained, you just kind of have to go with the flow, so to speak. If anybody knows how and why Finn McCool became a giant, please let me know in the comments because I'd love to know. So it says, legend has it that Finn McCool constructed the Giant's Causeway near Bushmills in County Antrim. This causeway was said to run from Bushmills to a cave at Staffa in Scotland. It's also called Fingal's Cave. Fingal is what the Scots call Finn McCool, Fingal. It is also said that Finn McCool created the Isle of Man by throwing a sod of earth from Ulster at an enemy in England. The sod fell short and dropped in the Irish Sea, thus making the Isle of Man. The area from which the sod of earth was lifted, filled with water, and became Lough in Ulster. So that's it. That's my favourite mug. I'm going to say a little bit more about this story. So we've just mentioned Lough Neagh. Well, another one of the etymologies for the name Lough Neagh comes from Lough Neagh, which means Yochi's Lake. And this is by one of the legendary accounts named after Yochi MacMurla, a Munster king. But this Fenian legend that I just mentioned attributes the formation of the loch to Finn McCool, the heroic leader of the Fianna warriors, who at this stage in his heroic portfolio now takes the form of a 16.5 meter or 54 foot tall warrior giant who finds himself in the middle of a feud with another giant called Benandonner, who was his rival. And Benandonner spent his day just incessantly taunting Finn McCool, shouting from Scotland, his voice bellowed across the waters all the way to Ireland, and taunted Finn McCool. One day, Finn is so angered by this incessant taunting that he grabbed the earth with his bare hands, hurled it with all his might towards Benandonner, but missed terribly, and the huge sod landing in the Irish Sea became the Isle of Man. The vast hole left behind in the earth became Lough Neagh when it was filled with water. His story continues as the sounds of Benandonner's laughter bellowing louder than ever now across the water to Finn's abode in Ulster. Furious that his shot failed to meet its mark, Finn is now determined to cross the water and confront Benandonner in person, but without getting wet if it could be avoided. So promptly, Finn turned to building the Giant's Causeway, and once it was finished, began his crossing towards Scotland. Nearing the end of the stretch, Finn actually saw Benandonner for the first time in the distance, and he was so shocked to see that Benandonner was actually much larger than Finn had prepared for. A cold fear gripped him and shot down his spine, and our brave hero, the leader of the Fianna warriors, quickly retreated back to his house into the arms of his wife Una, who magically disguised him as a baby. Descending upon Finn's home like the sound of thunder, Benandonner is confused when he sees no sign of Finn, but he decides to sit and wait for his return. Meanwhile, the wily Una has a clever idea, and she begins to bake a batch of delicious cakes, but she makes them from iron and offers them to the waiting giant with a hospitable smile. Biting into one of these cakes, Benandonner chips his tooth, and Una begins to laugh and mock this giant. She mocks his weakness, claiming that her husband eats cakes like these all the time. And to prove the point, she offers one of the cakes to the baby, which was Finn in disguise. Except that this one had been cunningly prepared in the normal way, without the addition of iron. Seeing this baby gobble the cake with such delightful ease, having just chipped his own tooth, this frightened Benandonner. Catching a glimpse of the crib, the infant inside it suddenly appeared huge to Benandonner. So huge was the child that suddenly Benandonner no longer wanted to meet the father, who he figured must be enormous. Fleeing from the sight across the causeway Finn had created, Benandonner smashed and wrecked the path behind him, ensuring pursuit from Finn would not be possible. I guess this explains why you cannot cross the Giant's Causeway today. The Scottish side of the causeway emerges from the sea on the Isle of Staffa in the Inner Hebrides, and the place named Fingal's Cave, in honour of the giant hero Finn. The same hexagonal, I can never say that word, basalt columns can be found here. So this geographic feature that we have on the north of Ireland and County Antrim, the hexagonal columns, it rises again once it goes under the water. It rises again on the other side at the Isle of Staffa in the Inner Hebrides, and this is a place known as Fingal's Cave by the Scottish. It's also referred to as Uv Bin, which means the cave of melody, which is just quite poetic and beautiful. In another account of this story, Finn's antagonist is not Benandonner, but it's Cuchulainn, who lived at different ages, who appear in different epochs of Irish mythology, but for some reason now both exist at the same time and are both giants. While waiting for Finn to return in this story, Una further goads Cuchulainn and challenges him to a series of tasks to perform. There are some other Irish names for the Giant's Causeway. They're known as Clochán on Éifir, which means the stone crossing of rebuke. It's one of the translations that's given for it. And Chasan on Fachik, which is the giant's path, as well as Clochán na Fororach, which is the stepping stones of the Fomorians. So that's it, guys. That's my favorite mug, my fun McCool mug. I love it very much. I've never seen anything like it before or since. So, and I like that every morning when I wake up and have my coffee, I am reminded of my heritage. I'm reminded of the land that I come from and its stories. And that's always a really nice way to start the day. So, folks, until next time, thank you very much, and Slán go fall.